Welcome to the meeting on installing Swift Microgateway 3.0, not only installing but configuring and using Swift Microgateway 3.0. The purpose of the meeting is to demonstrate installation configuration procedures from scratch on a new version of Swift Microgateway. As an example, we decided to take TSS API, Transaction Sanction Screening API, which is hosted in addition to as a real service. In addition, we have TSS API hosted in Swift API Sandbox. So today we will be covering how to set up Swift Microgateway 3.0 to work with Swift API Sandbox. On top of that, we will be covering the entire value proposition of Swift API connectivity portfolio, where Swift Microgateway 3.0 stands with regard to other options like Swift Zero Footprint, Swift Security SDK, Swift SDK. We will be addressing points of CSP, which is very important, points related to CAS, Customer Access Strategy. And as a last chapter, we will be covering a new feature of Swift Microgateway 3x, which is a verticals framework. And we will be demonstrating the entire set of operations associated with activating, configuring, and leveraging a vertical of Swift Microgateway for providing access to new Swift services which are available over API channel, but providing the access to these services more specifically to legacy back office applications. With this being said, let me present what we just did update on Swift Developer Portal. So basically, you have an ability to download the latest version of Swift Microgateway. On top of that, we're keeping an ability to download the previous version of 2.17 for already existing customers of Swift Microgateway. So point of attention, when you press this button, unlike of the previous version, where download will be happening within Swift Developer Portal, we will be transferred to swift.com because Swift Microgateway 3.0 is a commercial offering, so the download of all commercial offerings is accomplished using Swift.com Download Center, right? Before doing that, I would like to present briefly the set of new collaterals or materials that we already published on Swift Microgateway 3.0. More specifically, today we will be covering the functionality of Swift Microgateway 3.0 working in conjunction with Swift API Sandbox, right? That's something that we'll be presenting. You could find all the materials and details available in this slide. Point of attention, you always need to check Swift Microgateway 3.0 pricing. That information about Swift Microgateway 3.0 availability, pricing, timeline. It's already a short version of the file. On the pricing information side, we are providing basically where we stand with Swift Microgateway 3.0, right? Swift Microgateway 3.0 is becoming a commercial offering. Swift Microgateway 2x is basically in deprecation phase. It's still available for patches to existing Swift Microgateway customers, right? But it's in deprecation phase. The only Swift Microgateway offering which will be staying on the market is a commercial version. Very important to know that the rest of the options which you see here, Swift Zero Footprint, Swift Security SDK, Swift SDK 2x, including Swift SDK Code Generator, remains available for free. And we are providing basically the roadmap on how we will be launching Swift Microgateway 3.0, information about the pricing of Swift Microgateway, right? So important information to check before making a decision, right? Because obviously, if you would like to be kind of aligned with public cloud computing principles, and you would like to consume existing or new business assets of Swift via API channel, you equally need to consider all these options, right? Specifically taking into account that public cloud providers, they actively promote the option of consuming cloud services using SDK or API specification approach, which is in our terminology is called Swift Zero Footprint. By the way, public cloud providers, they have their own offerings related to what I would define as a specific SDK responsible only for securities, right? So that's very important to take a conscious, qualified decision, taking into account CSP mandatory and advisory requirements. With this being said, if I click on this button, you will be effectively forwarded to Swift.com Download Center. And then if you click on the Swift Microgateway, you will see basically 3 versions of Swift Microgateway 3.21.0.14 available for 3 different operating systems. Yes, we take a decision to provide the long-term support for IX platform, right? Down the list, you will see the version of Swift Microgateway for Alliance Cloud. Very soon, there will be only one version of Swift Microgateway 3.0, effectively representing a software stack for accessing Swift value-added services and for accessing messaging services via Alliance Cloud. For the moment, you see the difference in the version numbers, but very soon there will be only one version which can be used for both pillars. Point of attention, for the first time, we are providing GUI-based and silent installation procedures for Swift Microgateway 3.0, right? It's very important to say that we don't provide this procedure for IX. It's still a classical installation of Swift Microgateway 3.0. And this is something that we will be concentrating during this session, because why we decided to select a classical, I would say, form of installing 3.0, because majority of existing Swift Microgateway customers, they used to follow this procedure already for years. It's very familiar for them, right? With this being said, allow me to introduce Gotthard, who is our lead on Swift Microgateway development, who will be presenting the usage of TSS API hosted in Swift API Sandbox, all the procedures related to configuration, installation, and the usage, including the new feature of the platform, which is called Vertical.
Okay, right. As you have demonstrated, Microgateway software can be downloaded directly on the dev portal on the download center. So once you download the software, you get basically a zip here that you see on my screen, delivery of Microgateway. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to extract the zip here on my main folder, and we go step by step through the installation. So the folder is unzipped, right? It's here. So when you unzip it, you can see for security, you can verify obviously the binary. We provide a checksum, MD5 and SHA. And so here inside you have another zip then that you can go ahead and unzip again. Right, so the unzipping is completed. So now we can access the binaries. So that's the binaries on Microgateway. So what you see inside is pretty much what you used to see on the previous version with additional extra. We'll go through together later on. But you have a bin folder, that's not new. Config folder, not new. Docker, that's new. We provide a Docker delivery of Microgateway, or Docker image that can allow you to actually run Microgateway out of the box. Front end, that's not new. It comes with the Postman collection that can allow you actually to test Microgateway via Postman. We provide a JDK that's new. You don't see that under 2x. It's a JDK that is embedded inside our delivery, and it supports obviously AX, Linux, and Windows. So you don't have to install Java if you don't have it, right? Library, that's not new. Open API specification, OS, that's not new. Package is not new either. Performance is not new, and source code is not new. That's what we have. The license has been updated, obviously. I will leave this for you to read. Inside package, what you do see is that we have obviously a new folder here called Vertical. I will explain later on in the demo, but those are Vertical that we have for you, application that you have for you to install at runtime, okay? And the one we are going to demonstrate as part of this demo is the IBM MQ connector. So having said that, let's go ahead. Let's run this Microgateway. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the binary only, not the zip of the zip, and I'm going to go to my main folder and I'm going to copy everything here. So that's just the Microgateway binaries, nothing else. I'm copying to my main folder. Okay, and I'm going to delete the package. So that's Microgateway raw, okay, as it comes. So to start Microgateway is pretty much easy, right? We provide, you can actually set up inside the conf folder, right? You can actually set up the configuration file of Microgateway. It doesn't change. So the configuration file is self-documented, okay, as you can see here on the screen. But we also do provide a sample that connect directly to Sandbox inside the Docker folder. So if you go inside Docker here, you can see there is a sample configuration file that you can use that we provide. It's the same sample that we use for to bootstrap our Docker image of Microgateway. So if I open this sample file, it's already configured pretty much, right? There is nothing for you to do. This sample file configuration is going to a Sandbox. Is using a demo certificate, okay, which is called Microgateway Web Container. This certificate does not exist, so under Microgateway 3x, any certificate that doesn't exist is automatically created by Microgateway. The key store is automatically created by Microgateway, and it will be secure with the password that you see here. And the certificate alias will be created as a self-sign. All right, that will be a key store that will be automatically managed on Microgateway. So this sample file is ready to go out, out of the box. It comes obviously with a default API key for management, configuration, and monitoring Microgateway. Okay, you also come with a database URL embedded database that is encrypted, so it's completely secure. You can't access the data. The database is fully encrypted. So, and that's it. So it's ready to go. So I'm going to use that configuration file as it is. I'm not going to change anything. Okay, this is what you see, what you get. So I'm going to copy that.
Can I just maybe ask one clarifying point, that if I understood correctly, unlike of Swift Microgateway 2.17x, we effectively providing ready-to-use configuration for a bootstrap file, which is simply ready to go. By default, you may actually consider only to change the log level, but apart from that, everything will be done automatically, because in the past, some of the customers, they were spending time to figure out how to configure web container of Swift Microgateway. It's not the case anymore. We're providing something which is ready to go for a bootstrap configuration. With the minimal changes, we can get an instance running and finalize configuration. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. So for this use case here, this demo here, I'm not going to change anything. I'm not even going to touch the debug level. I'm going to leave it to info. Just run it the way how it is. So that's it. So user can actually take this configuration file as a sample. Just come to config here and comment this one out. Okay, so you can comment. You can just put BKP here, backup. Okay. Okay, you can back up the existing, the default one, and you can just Control-C and Control-V the sample one we provide for Docker. So because it's sample file, you want to rename it to a real name, so you remove sample here. Okay, job done. That's the configuration pretty much done, and there is nothing else to do. So the next step for me is actually to come here under bin. Okay, I will do that right here. So okay, so next step for me is to do this under bin. I'm going to go here under bin directly. Okay, so let me just get this here. Going to bring a new Windows, clean Windows here. Okay, I'm going to open a CMD that I have here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go directly to that bin folder, okay, which is Microgateway here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply type start CMD console, so we can see the log on screen. Okay, console it's an optional option that you might or might not use. So because here I'm running a demo, I want to see to the audience what's going on. I'm going to have the log here in console, and as well as obviously file, but console will allow you to see everything. And also I'm going to add the option here with JDK, which allow you basically to use a Microgateway embedded JDK, right? That's all what you need. So if you start like this, So it's telling you Microgateway is using internal JDK, and off we go. The software is actually starting. So as you can see, software is very easy to start. There is no configuration for me to do. I didn't spend 1 single minute doing any setup. Configuration was done a couple of minutes, not even, and the software is ready to run out of the box, right? So that's it. Software is ready to go. We are here. It's finished. So that was very quick, as I said, for the setup. So here again, one of the big win that you get here with Microgateway. So you don't get that on Microgateway 2x, right? You don't get this fast, very efficient start bootstrap of the software, right? So with Microgateway 2x, you will obviously have to spend time encrypting and decrypting the configuration file yourself and do any adjustment back and forth. Right here, we can see that the configuration file was automatically encrypted by Microgateway, and it's all done automatically. There is no effort for you to spend here. And we can see also that the key store was automatically generated by Microgateway. You don't have to do anything again. Key store generated, and it was secure, obviously, with the password that we provided inside the key store. And he also give you, obviously, X509 that will allow you, obviously, to establish from a front-end point of view or client point of view. You can establish a one-way or two-way TLS if you wish to with Microgateway. But this is a Microgateway web container certificate, X509, that you can use to trust the server, to trust Microgateway when you operate your TLS handshake. So this is done, right? So Microgateway is running, like I said. What I'm going to do now is to run a health check, right, to see what's going on with the software. So very easy for this. We provide a Postman collection. So if I come here, under front end, you can see here there is a Postman collection here for Microgateway. So for anyone who don't know Postman, Postman obviously it's a tool that is available on the market. So the old version was pretty much free, but I think today now Postman charge for the usage of the software. So Postman, it's well, like I said, it's a testing tool for API. Okay, it's widely known. So I've got my Postman here. So the way to load the Postman collection is very easy. I'm just going to show you. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the steps because this is not a Postman demo. But basically, if you have Postman, you just click here on import, and all what you have to do is to drag and drop here your Microgateway collection. So I'm just going to minimize this, but basically all what you have to do is to come here and put this, right? And then you click on import, right? And if you click on import, it will obviously load it directly on your screen. So once you have done this, you get a Postman collection that looks like this, okay? So the Postman collection looks like this. The Postman collection, it comes with pre-scripting, everything is done. What you have to do, again, that's not new. That's something that you are already doing now with Microgateway 2x for any existing user. You can set up obviously the application profile of Microgateway under variable. So that's under the main Postman collection, the main parent folder. You can set up the application name, the profile, and the share secret. Okay. So share secret that obviously you define inside your Bootstrap configuration file. That's the way to. That's what to do. So if you do this, then you are able to basically to make API call outside the box, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run a health check very quickly, okay, with Microgateway to see what's going on. So if I come here and I type health check.
Before that, can I ask a question? So basically, all the parameters that you describe and the concept of Postman collection is something that we provide already included in Swift Microgateway deliverables, so with the main aim of simplifying integration and demonstrating integration on Swift Microgateway. So effectively, Postman Collections works as a front end, effectively mimicking all the operation that a back office needs to do in order to interact with Microgateway, and we support the concept of multiple back offices. We obviously support one-way and two-way TLS, and we support the shared key that you mentioned for bidirectional authentication and API calls integrity. That's my understanding, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
So if you didn't use Postman, you can also go hardcore with curl command if you want to, right? So I'm going to make a else check. Okay, so else check is telling us, fine, Microgateway is running, no issues. We've got diagnostic, and it tells us that, but the configuration is incomplete, right? So we have here a message saying the configuration is incomplete, and we don't have any environment setup, okay, completed for Sandbox. So why Sandbox? Because that's what we have inside our Bootstrap configuration file, and it's telling us that the certificate to Sandbox is unknown, so therefore we can't really access to Sandbox. So the first step for us is to set up the environment, right? So to set up Microgateway, obviously here we need to set up the environment. We need to set up obviously the credential via API gateway to manage session. We need to set up as well a business application and a profile for Microgateway. That's a configuration exercise we have to go through. So the first step here is first to, because I can't access, I'm actually installing Microgateway for my VM machine. Sandbox is on internet. I don't have direct access to internet. Here at Swift, we go through a forward proxy, okay? And the first step for me is actually to download the SSL certificate related to my forward proxy here at Swift, so I can actually perform a one-way TLS directly to Sandbox. So for this, because obviously I'm going through a proxy here, so the proxy is actually called cloud proxy swift.com. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to acquire a certificate for it, right? So I'm just going to do that very quickly. So with Microgateway 3x, you don't need to set up any certificate manually. We have this endpoints that allow you to acquire a certificate automatically from a remote host, okay? So if your remote host obviously serve SSL service, okay, serve SSL, you can acquire a certificate automatically using Microgateway microservices endpoint. So here I need to acquire a certificate from my proxy host, okay, which is operating obviously a SSL under HE, and I'm going to acquire that certificate and save it into database under proxy cert. Okay, so if I make this API call here, Microgateway is telling me no problemo, the certificate was acquired, so I've got the 200, and Microgateway is telling you that this certificate is not alone, is part of a chain trust. Okay. And what you see here is that Microgateway break down the certificate into the different part of the chain. So you have obviously the intermediary certificate, you have the main certificate, and you have the root here. So each time when there is a new element in the chain, Microgateway obviously add here the suffix chain and the number, right? So that's the main certificate. So there is no underscore, there is no suffix. And this is the intermediary. So you've got underscore chain 1, and that's the root, that's the last one. So underscore chain 2. So that's a certificate we are going to use, which is chain 2 root. We are going to stick to this one because that's the root and it covers all the scenarios. Yeah.
Okay.
So certificate acquire, that's done. The next step is actually to set up the proxy. Okay. So for this, if you come here and you type proxy, okay, and what we are going to do here is actually to add a forward proxy, right? So the forward proxy we want to add, is under hostname, obviously cloud proxy swift.com, and the port is 8080. So we are going to add this. This is done. This is created. The next step here is actually now this is done. Actually, we should be able actually to make an API call as long as we configure the environment. So next step for us is to configure the environment, is to tell Microgateway, look, Microgateway, the API gateway is going through the environment of cloud via cloud proxy Swift. So what we are going to do here is to add is to update an existing environment. So for this, I'm first going to visualize the existing environment. So here we can see the environment that we have that is currently active is going to sandbox with the audience sandbox.swift.com, authorization URL defined here, which is v1 token, and the host is sandbox.swift.com, and there is no certificate. Okay, so we need to tell Microgateway sandbox is going through the forward proxy, and therefore the certificate here X509 should be the one associated to our forward proxy, right? We need to have to do this, and this is for two-way TLS, what we are not using here. Okay, so we'll leave this null, and we are only going to set up this. So for this, I can just copy this body here, and I go to update environment. Okay, and here under update environment, I can just here put here directly the certificate alias I'm going to use, which is proxy cert underscore chain2, because that's the root certificate. So if I push this is done, this is accepted. So now if I make another query here, and we are going to see that the certificate has been updated to chain2 proxy cert. This is good enough. So now I should be able to do an API gateway else check. So if I come here, okay, this is a wrong endpoint. Sorry about this. And we go. Okay, here we go. Okay. So now it's telling me Swift API gateway is reachable. Yeah.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, so you basically explain procedure for connecting Swift Microgateway to any API gateway supported by Swift. It could be API gateway on what we call in VSIPN. It could be API gateway internet. It could be API gateway, which is effectively another API gateway of Swift, which is Swift API sandbox. It's absolutely universal generic procedure that you demonstrated in great details, but it's something that we already completely automated as a part of GUI-based and silent installers. So the main message that if you don't want to follow this procedure manually, right, or using Swift Microgateway frontend, because all the steps that Gatar has demonstrated right now can be replicated using Swift Microgateway frontend, you can rely on GUI-based or silent installation, or in some cases, you may prefer to have a complete control and to repeat the procedure from A to that using the approach demonstrated by Gattard. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to quickly show for the user who, for example, wonder what kind of environment we support outside Sandbox. We support any environment. You can customize your own environment. So it's very much it's an open floor. You can do pretty much anything. But we have some template environment, default environment that Microgateway has. That you can use, obviously, if you don't want to use Sandbox. But obviously, we have SaaS, Live, Sandbox, that is by default, and Test, right? Those are the template environments, obviously, that are matching a real production infrastructure behind. But if this is not good enough for you, and you still want to maybe create another custom environment with a different URL, Microgateway also supports this kind of possibility. So having said that, let's accelerate, okay? The next step for me is to set up actually a business application and business application profile, okay, with Microgateway. So for this, it's very simple. All what I have to come here do is to come here and type business. Okay, business. Okay. All right, okay, done. So, so what we are going to do here is to create actually an environment, right? So we want to do a post, create a new business application, okay, which is here, okay. And we are going to create a business application with a share secret here, and the name is going to call BO1 Hard Live, okay. So that's what we are going to do. Okay, so if I push this, okay,
Well,
this is done.
just maybe clarifying element, because we just for demonstration purposes use this name BO Hard Live, because alternatively we need to change many places where this name is used at level of Postman collection. But in reality, it could be any name, right?
That's
That
correct.
you associate with business application. It's effectively saying back office one. So in reality, we will be using a channel certificate for accessing Swift TPS sandbox. So hard is just, something that remains from the past. But important information, it's a shared key, which will be used by a back office to sign each API call, and which will be used by Microgateway to effectively verify the signature of each API call before submitting these calls to Swift API sandbox. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So the communication between your front end and Microgateway is actually secured by a signed JOT. Okay.
Okay.
So secured by a signed JOT. So under obviously your business application, you will have a share key that will be used then to sign your JOT, right? This is yeah. So that's not new. That's a way our Microgateway obviously is designed. So that's part obviously of the RFC 7515 implementation. Okay, so business application profile, that's done. And the next step is to create a profile associated to that, right? So for this, if we come here and we type profile, okay, we can actually create a profile, create an application profile. The application profile will be associated to our business application name, which is BO1 Hard Live. So under an application name, you can set up multiple profiles. So for example, it could be for tracker, it could be for SwiftRef or anything. Me, for a demo purpose, I'm just going to keep some generic values that I use for all my test cases. And the profile name will be called tracker profile live. And the ARBA code, I'm going to change the scope, okay? The scope, I'm going to change it, and I'm going to use TSS related. So if I just get here,
Swift.tss, yes.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, for the scope, I will be using this Swift.tss.api like this, and I think, see if I don't mistake, normally there is a P here, right? Let me just double check this. Yes, it's a P. So because it's an exclusion. Okay, so that's the scope.
It's a pilot. Exclamation P, it's a pilot. We will be effectively mimicking accessing Swift TSS service in a pilot environment, and we will be mimicking it with Swift TPS sandbox. Yes.
Okay, so the scope here, that's the correct one. Okay, so very important here. You know what? I'm going to run this just to show the audience what's happened if you run this like this, right? So if you run this like this, you will have a reject. Okay, you will have a reject because it's telling you the channel certificate does not exist. Okay, not found. So that's perfectly normal. It's because the sandbox obviously is secure via a channel certificate for session management. And Microgateway is telling us, look, I'm sorry, I can't create this application profile that you want because the certificate that you are associating to it does not exist. So Microgateway 3x has got a functionality that allow you actually to create generate a key pair via RSA. So again, that's another endpoint here. This is called generate a new RSA private key and public key pair. So you just come here, you give a certificate name, and you can generate one. Okay, it will be it will live inside Mcrogateway. This is done. I've created a certificate. And now if I go back to my profile, okay, and if I go to my post, create a new, and that should work now. Okay, so that's it. It's done now. So I've created a profile, I've created an application name, and I've created a proxy. The next step is to set up actually the basic credential for my application, right?
Okay, if I just one point which is important to know, because you demonstrated generation of channel certificate for the usage with Swift API Sandbox, but obviously it was self-signed effectively certificate, because normally if you use channel certificate for accessing production services, right, and among of these services could be TSS in pilot or in live, you need to go through the process of generating certification signing requests, submitting certification signing requests to SwiftNet.ca, obtaining public certificate, and putting public certificate linked to public-private key pair back to local KMS of Swift Microgateway 3.0. All the steps that I mentioned, they are automated in Swift Microgateway 3.0. You don't have to go through the manual procedure of using key tool or OpenSSL. The only thing that you need to know a reference number authorization code from OTM, right, at the time of provisioning channel certificate, which we will not be demonstrating in this recording. So please proceed.
So the next step here is to add a configuration for connectivity information for API services, which is the API client credential, okay, for basic authentication. This is used for session management when acquiring hosts. So here, if I come on my Postman here and I type add configuration, okay, you see there is an endpoint here that is called add configuration for connectivity information, right? That's what you want, okay? So if you click on this, you can actually set up here your basic credential, consumer key, consumer secret that you can give on the portal, right, on the dev portal. So the way to do this, I'm just going to show you where this credential come from. So if you come here on the dev portal, okay, if you come here and you log in, actually sign in, okay, and you come here. Okay, good. So if you go to application here under your profile, so me, in my case, I've created demo sandbox, but the way to do it is to create a new app here, okay? You can select the service that you are interested into, okay? You can see there is all the API available on Swift Community API. So all of them are there. You can select whatever you want. You can give an application name, for example, demo 2 if you want to. Okay, and you can create an app like this. Yeah. So just to show, right? I'm not going. Just to show the audience here how easy it is actually, right? So demo 2 is there, but me in my use case, obviously for my demo, I'm going to use demo sandbox because that's the one I've already set here. They are all sandbox related, and this one here.
Can you click on it, please?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. So for this one is actually support TSS API. You support everything actually. I've selected all the different services, service providers, so it supports everything, including TSS API.
Okay, so you could see transaction screening API as a sort item in a list, please. If you scroll up a little bit, right? That's basically, so with this pair of API keys, you can access the following services. And as you can see on the screen, API keys, which for provision, that's only for sandbox usage, right?
Yes. So my consumer key and consumer secret, it's here. It was created, so that's a way to do it. So once you have your credential, you can just come here under API client credential, okay, which is add configuration, add a configuration for connectivity information. So this consumer key and consumer secret is going to be associated to your Mcrogateway business application. So if you just push this is done, it's created. And that's it. It's finished, right? So now you are ready pretty much to use Microgateway and make API call. That's the last configuration required. So to make an API call, again, that's going to be TSS API. So I've got a 9 point here. I've already loaded the Postman collection here on my screen here. So if you go on under your Microgateway Postman collection, you can see at the bottom there is an endpoint for TSS API. And then I can do a post here. Okay, I've got a payload. So if this is good, it should work outside the box. So it's not working because it's telling me that, look, we are on Sandbox. On Sandbox, there is no remote repository. The OpenAPI spec are missing for TSS API. So sorry, I don't know this endpoint, right? Microgateway is telling you, I reject this endpoint because I don't know it. So the way to do it on Sandbox is actually to load the OpenAPI spec directly to Microgateway using our local API OpenAPI spec repository, okay, management. So to do this with Microgateway, again, you have another endpoint that will allow you to deploy OpenAPI specification that you can get directly on a Swift API community portal. So if you come here and you go under deploy, you can actually put your OpenAPI spec, okay, that you download directly. And if you push this will deploy the API to Microgateway, and the next step is to load it inside Microgateway inside the database, right, in memory as well. So if you come here, you type trigger, you can trigger the pulling of the OpenAPI spec. So again, I'm going to do this under 370. Okay, here we go. Pulling. That's done. That OpenAPI spec was loaded. So now if I make the same API call now again, that's working.
Okay, fantastic. So let me maybe summarize and ask clarifying questions. So basically, we provide additional layer of security in Swift Microgateway by allowing to make API calls only for API products which are configured in Swift Microgateway. By saying API product, we identify API product with open API specification, which normally available in a kind of automated mode if central API repository is used. Central API repository is used for accessing Swift API services in pilot and live. So you don't have to do the operation that Gatard was just demonstrating in front of you for effectively configuring API products in Swift Microgateway running pilot or live, right? Because it's done automatically. However, for a Swift API sandbox usage, which is on the internet, it needs to be done manually, this type of configuration. In the first step, Gatard effectively submitted open API specification via secure microservice, which is protected with one-way TLS and a local API key stored in encrypted form to Swift Microgateway to be aware of this API specification process. And in the second step, we imported this API specification inside of Swift Microgateway, effectively building a set of logical filters so Swift Microgateway understand that this API specification is callable, right? Is my understanding correct?
That's very much correct, Denis.
Thank you.
So this is done. So the next step here is, so I mean, I can, for people who know Microgateway 2x, again, you know, this configuration exercise, which is very, very minor, will have taken much more time if we were on Microgateway 2x, right? Because we will have had to do a lot of manual setup before getting there. Certificate generation will have been manual. Importing certificate into Microgateway will have been manual. All of those stuff, right? So here it's actually much faster. And
okay.
Anyway, so yeah, go on.
Can I just make one point? So basically, at this stage, you as a customer of Swift Microgateway, you can connect multiple back offices for consuming variety of different Swift value-added services via API. It could be TSS API, it could be JFC API, it could be a range of GPI API offerings, it could be security view, right? So that's basically a traditional model of Swift microgateway usage, right? And it's only one of API connectivity options, right? So very important point, the only offering staying on the market as a Swift microgateway, it will be the offering which is Swift microgateway 3.0, which is a commercial offering, right? There will be no Swift microgateway software available for free, and the current status of Swift microgateway 2x is basically it's in deprecation phase, right? And it will be phased out by June 2027, because we would like to give our customers sufficient time to plan their migration activities. Swift microgateway 3.0 is only one choice for migration. The other choices, Swift Zero Footprint, Swift Security SDK, Swift SDK, they remain available for free, effectively allowing customers to build their own microgateway software, or maybe integrate Swift APIs or connectivity with Swift APIs directly in their API gateway offering, right? So that's basically traditional set of operations. Being said, in some cases, we have requirements originating from a range of legacy back office applications, right, which for some reasons cannot communicate with the new Swift value-added services as TSS using effectively REST API channel. So we are heading to the second part of our meeting, where we will be explaining the concept of verticals, or concept of lightweight application platform, which Swift microgateway 3.0 became, right? For onboarding these type of customers, with obviously a future horizon for these legacy back offices at some point to go for REST APIs using different Swift API connectivity options, right? So with this being said, can we proceed please to explaining what type of features we put inside of 3.0 to make these legacy back offices applications capable to consume a new range of Swift services, please. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So one of the great features of Microgateway 3x is that you have the capability to deploy at runtime any application that you want. Those applications will run on top of Microgateway. Okay, think about this like your app store. Okay, you can go on your app store, select different application, and deploy them into your phone. Okay, deploy into your Apple phone. Same concept, right? So here, but the binary are provided by Swift. They come inside your Microgateway delivery. You get your binaries there, okay, your application, and then you can deploy them into Microgateway at runtime as you want. You can deploy them and you can remove them as well, okay? You can manage the full life cycle of the application. So for this, again, very easy. You can go back to your Microgateway installation folder. So we are going to do this here. If I come back here. So if you go back to your Microgateway folder, inside package, there is a folder called vertical. And inside you have different applications. So one we are going to demonstrate as part of this demo, it's IBM MQ connector vertical. So what does this application do? It allows you to make API call to Microgateway using IBM MQ interface. So you don't make a REST API call directly, okay? You push a message directly to your IBM MQ, and your queue will serve obviously as a connectivity interface with Microgateway to make API call automatically. That's what we are going to demonstrate here. So if you go inside, you will see that the vertical comes obviously with a jar. So let me just expand this a bit here, like that. Okay, it's a small jar. You can see it's only 7 megabytes, very lightweight. It comes with its own configuration file, and is on open API spec that you can load in Postman if you want to do like to use different microservices capability. But if you open here the configuration, that's what the configuration looks like by default. So the configuration basically is telling you, look, for me to work, I need you to provide me a queue manager, that we are doing here. Okay, so the queue manager is going through a channel, a server channel. The connectivity is secure with an application user ID and password. The queue manager, in my case, in the demo case, is running on localhost port 1414. It's a Docker version of IBM MQ. Okay, the queue manager name, it's QM1. Then you have some setup that are technical related. So there is an API key authentication used by the vertical authenticate with Microgateway. That's a technical authentication that you have to set up. There is a microservices API key that is also you can set up to expose microservices API capability with the vertical itself that will run under the port 9000. The vertical itself support two flow inbound and outbound. So in our case, we are going to demonstrate outbound. Okay. With the outbound, obviously, you have a capability to here you can enable it or disable it. The same for inbound, and you can specify here the queue that you will use for outbound connectivity, right? So in our case, we are going to call it Microgateway vertical outbound queue. And then the final section here that you see, it's what we call auto deployment. So those queue, all the queue that you set up here can actually be auto deployed by Microgateway automatically, programmatically for you, okay? And you don't have to do any setup. This is optional for customer who wants to. But if you want to use auto deployer, obviously it requires you to provide an admin channel for that, and that come associated with its own admin credential. Okay, and this will allow Microgateway to perform any auto deployment and queue management for you automatically. Okay. So
okay, can I summarize my understanding quickly? So basically what we see here is a configuration management YAML file of the vertical itself versus the kind of, it's not a bootstrap configuration management file of Microgateway. It's configuration management which is done per vertical. So my assumption that in runtime this configuration management is completely encrypted, right? Secondly, looking at all these MQ related parameters, I can conclude that basically customer is responsible for providing MQ manager or MQ server, and we are responsible at the level of vertical for acting as MQ client. Then I can observe a typical set of channel name, password, user ID, host name, port number, queue manager parameters, along with our own configuration explaining whether it can be used for making API calls or actually processing inbound API calls, right? And queue auto deployment feature, it's effectively quite a useful feature because it would allow MQ administrator to rely on automatic queue creation, so they don't have to go and manually create a queues. They need to have a specific dynamic queue model name configured, right, with associated channel name, allowing automatic queue creation, which can be useful. But if this not used by customer, they can configure MQ queue names using traditional manual means, right? Is my understanding correct?
That's correct, Denis.
Thank you.
That's correct.
So let's then proceed with activating this vertical and then basically discussing what is next.
Okay, so let's speed up here. So to install the vertical, we have an endpoint, okay, that is called vertical install. So if you come here under your Postman collection and you type vertical, okay, what you are looking for here is actually an endpoint that is called install vertical. So if you come here under Microgateway microservices, so I'm just going to minimize here because I do a lot of multitasking. So here we go. Okay. So under Microgateway management here, you have install vertical from binaries. Okay, that's what we are going to do. Install vertical, and you have another one as well called enable vertical. Okay, so you have install there, and you can also obviously do vertical config. You can view the vertical config if you want to. And here, if you come back here and you type, okay, so you have another endpoint here called enable vertical. Okay, so that's what we are going to use. We are going to use install and enable. So the first point is to go here to the install endpoint. Okay, so under that we can actually go under body and tell Postman we are pushing a file. So the file here will be the jar itself, the configuration, the schema, the vertical is secured by a license, and if we push this, done, it's installed. Okay, so Microgateway is telling you it's fine, 200k, 200 okay, and it's actually installed. The next step is to enable it. So to enable it, you just have to provide the vertical name, which is Microgateway IBM MQ connector vertical. If you don't know, if you're not sure, you can just copy and paste it from your response payload. Okay, you can just copy the name here, and if you go under enable, you can just pass the name here, right? And then you will be able to enable it. And here it's telling you, sorry, I can't enable it because I can't secure a TLS SSL handshake with the MQ manager, which is operating under localhost 1414. Okay, and that's expected, right? So, so the way to do it is, again, Microgateway 3x has got this beautiful functionality where you can actually acquire certificate from any SSL host. So if you come here and you go back to my certificate acquire endpoint, tell Microgateway, okay, fine. We need that certificate, which is under port 1414, running actually under localhost. Okay. And you can tell here, this is going to, can give you the name, it's going to be MQ IBM, right? All right. So this will allow us to acquire certificate. Certificate is done. Certificate doesn't have any chain. It's just one single certificate all alone. At least that's what we can see from a Java discovery point of view. So one single certificate, and that's done. So if you go back now to your enable endpoint, you should be able to actually now install that. Right, that's it. Because Microgateway now can see now the certificate, the public certificate X509 of the MQ manager, and therefore is able to install the vertical. So that's done. That's finished. And after, if you want, you can do a health check here. And when you do a health check, you can see that Microgateway is running, everything is okay, and you have one vertical application running, which is active and secured by a license. You can see also the license has got an expiry date. Yeah, and you're good to go here. Right?
Well, if just one point for those of you who configured MQ connectivity on MQ client side working with MQ server, obviously some of you are aware that configuring one-way TLS connectivity with MQ manager involves a number of kind of manual steps, right, by default. And what you just observed or witnessed, it's a kind of streamlined model of configuration, because everything has been accomplished from effectively the platform itself using the microservices, secure microservices. Okay, that's fantastic. So, but what is next? Because obviously, if I am kind of MQ-based back office developer, I just wonder what is next, because MQ Manager is something that my financial institution needs to provide. Microgateway platform at the end of the day works as MQ client after doing all this configuration, but myself, I need to develop an application which leverages TSS service, leverage this TSS service through MQ channel, because for the moment I'm not ready to support REST API. However, I'm already looking into it. What is the next point for me?
So now you have to communicate obviously with Microgateway. You can communicate with Microgateway using IBM MQ interface. Okay. So the way to do it is that for you now you have to build an application. You can build your own application that obviously act as IBM MQ client and push data to the queue that was defined inside the vertical. It's called vertical outbound queue. You can do that. But to do this, obviously, maybe you feel like, look, you need guidance and you're not very comfortable with the way to do it. Well, we provide as part of the delivery a package that is also source code is available under source. If you go to example, okay, you can see the different code sample that we provide for IBM MQ connector, right? So if you go under Swift here, okay, MQ example, and if you go under IBM MQ, we have here sample code that show you how you can actually integrate with Microgateway via IBM MQ interface. We also provide binary out of the box, ready for you to test that connectivity. Okay, so the example is actually compiled as well as a jar file, and it's ready for you to run outside the box. Okay, out of the box. So for this, very simple. We have here under Microgateway. If you go under package, we have a folder called example. Okay, that's where you will find all the compile example ready to go. So for Java here, it's fast for Java, right? So we provide the library, which is basically, again, like I said, the jar file that is compiled. And you have the bin here, the bin folder, where we provide actually a shell command and a batch command script that can allow you to run this example automatically. So the way to do it is actually to open a CMD from that location. Okay, so if you come here, you can open a CMD directly. So you come here, you can open a CMD. That's it. You're ready to go. So the IBM MQ interface as a client comes with a configuration file. Okay, there is a configuration file that you see here that we provide, again, that is self-documented. The configuration file takes different parameters. So there is a business application parameter related that you can see here. This is very much similar to what you would get on Postman. So I'm not going to go through all that, but basically here you can define the method that you want to do. You can define the path.
Wait a moment, but if I understood correctly, so we are providing source and then we're providing binary, and obviously binary needs to be configured because there are many things to take in account. But I have an impression what I'm observing here is actually not the configuration file itself, it's a template of configuration file.
That's correct.
Is my understanding correct?
Yes.
So that's basically a template which explain with very detailed comments what needs to be done in terms of providing actual configuration file instance, right? So also it's very interesting to go through the template, but can we just maybe for sake of speeding up, just go directly to the actual instance of configuration file?
Yes, of course. So that's the template. So I've got the configuration file here that is ready to go that we can use. So I'm going to comment out here the template, okay? And if I use directly the configuration file, okay, that we are going to do. So that's what the file looks like. Okay, so we are going to test a post like we did on Postman. We are going to go to a TSS screening request. Post with NR require equal true. That will be the body, similar body to what we had on Postman. Okay. Body we are going to send. We have the credential that we require to sign the job to authenticate with Microgateway based on the share key, RFC 7515. And then further down, we have obviously the connectivity of the IBM MQ, right? So local host 1414 and the channel name and the username and the password. Okay, that's what we need.
So basically, the configuration file that we are observing right now is something which is used by a binary code sample that we provide, right?
Yes.
And the binary code sample retrieves all these parameters from configuration file, and it acts accordingly. So if you would like to see what is happening behind the scene, you need to effectively locate source files and go and go through the source code in order to understand what is happening behind the scene in terms of locating these configuration parameters and using these configuration parameters in your interactions with MQ server acting as MQ client. But generally speaking, these configuration parameters, if you can scroll up a little bit, generally these configuration parameters explain what needs to be used as effectively GMS properties, right? So if you can just scroll a little bit up, right? So as GMS properties, we're delivering information about request method. We're delivering information on whether we would like to validate API requests, which you see a body tag against open API specification. We're delivering configuration parameters, which needs to be effectively converted as HTTP header in case of NR required, for instance, right? Can you, by the way, specify NR required false, right? Because for TSS API, we don't have a requirement to calculate NR. Yes, thank you. And then we providing information regarding business application, right? Regarding profile name, right? We providing information on shared key, which you see if you can scroll down below, right? We are providing information on we associating with request X request ID. We also actually communicating with MQ server using one-way TLS, but on top of that, we perform signing, right? We actually perform signing of the same JOT, which is included as GMS property, right? Because this signing will be verified by MQ connector vertical, and key store settings is something that is required for storing the certificate for connecting to MQ manager. And obviously, we need to provide the name of MQQ name, right? Point of attention, we indeed acting as MQ client in connection or in conjunction with MQ server, but we're treating MQ server as effectively GMS provider. And that's why we heavily relying on RFH2 mechanism of IBM MQ Manager, which effectively introduces interoperability with GMS API, and more specifically at the level of GMS properties. Is my understanding correct on the role of this file?
Yeah, that's correct, of course.
And I've seen the sections related to Apache Kafka and GMS configuration. They probably simply not required, right? If you scroll down below.
That's correct, because we are not using any Kafka connector here.
Okay, that's fantastic. So why don't we go and make an API call?
Okay.
Why IBM MQ? Yes, please.
Yes, so that's done. Okay, so the next step for me here is actually to make an API call, right? So to make an API call, come here. What I can do is that, okay. So the way to do it is to call the outbound script. So that's outbound bo.cmd. The outbound script takes different options. So it could be IBM MQ, it could be Kafka or GMS. We are using IBM MQ, so that's why you've got minus IBM MQ. And you also need the configuration file. If you have a specific location, you can specify it here. If you don't, Microgateway, the example will assume that the configuration file is in the home directory. So therefore, it's a current directory, and we'll resolve it here, right? So if I run this, That's it. So it's running. The application is saying, look, I'm ready to go. And if you press enter, you can send a new message each time. Okay, so you press enter. That's it. Sending you the payload like we had in the configuration file, and the response is straight away here. Okay, so it's all working.
Okay, that's fantastic achievement. And on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, we can observe HTTP status code that was returned back, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So the status code is just there. You have to zoom out here. It's here.
Okay. So the status code is 201. Can we do a quick sample? Can we do a quick example which can be very useful while you're developing your MQ logic? Can we go back to configuration file?
Yeah.
Yes. So can we please provide for ISO 2022 validate? Can we please provide the value request? If you scroll up.
Yeah.
In uppercase, the value request.
Okay, that's going to fail.
Okay, the value request. And can you scroll down to the body pilot, right? And add, for instance, additional characters to business service, which you see SwiftFin, right? So can you change the name of SwiftFin? Can you add additional, I don't know, characters like, I don't know, a number of Y characters? Yes, something like that, yes. And can you add additional characters to the field from, which is big 11? Can you additional the same characters, right? Say AA, something like that, yeah. So, and let's try to make a request, right?
Okay, sure, no problem.
And let's see what would be the outcome.
Press enter again. Okay, that was successful.
Okay, that's something that we need to look in terms of improvement, right? Because my assumption was that we will be effectively validating API request against open API specification, but that's additional point that we need to look at. So for the rest, thank you very much.